Colonel Brubaker, could you please come with us?
I'm not going anywhere until somebody tells us what the hell's going on.
Everything will be explained to you.
Bullshit. I want to know right now.
Colonel, I know this sounds strange. We are all working for the same thing. We are not your enemy.
Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. So please subscribe when you're finished listening. You can also go to snarkymoviereviews.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Some people believe the moon landings were faked. These people are known as idiots. Today's movie is Capricorn One, 1977. This is a fantastic conspiracy theory movie about an aborted flight to Mars and the cover-up. This movie fits in well with the general mistrust of the government following the Watergate mess, the pardoning of President Nixon, an unelected president, and the 1976 election. This film has the rather low rating of 6.8 on IMDb.com. It got no love from Rotten Tomatoes with a 61% on the tomato meter. Vincent Canby of the New York Times killed this movie with the following, quote, "The stuff that comes in between is humorless comic strip stuff about a conspiracy so widespread that you finally realize the only people in the country who don't know about it are the 3 astronauts, a minor space employee, one unreliable television reporter, an eccentric crop duster, owner of the lovable biplane, and the members of their immediate family." Unquote. But hey, what the hell? I like it, and I think you might too. I will go on to the actors, which are a very talented bunch. Hell, 2 of them married Barbra Streisand. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Hal Holbrook played program director Dr. James Kellaway. Holbrook was covered in episode 114, Wild in the Streets, 1968. Telly Savalas has a small role as Albane. Savalas was covered in episode 31, Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962. Elliot Gould played Robert Caulfield, an investigative reporter. Gould was born in 1938 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
Gould made his Broadway debut in 1957. His film career began with Quick, Let's Get Married, 1964. His first major film was Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, 1969. This was followed by MASH, 1970, where Gould was masterful as Trapper John. Gould has had almost 200 television and movie credits, but he has sometimes had trouble finding work. He played Phil Marlowe in The Long Kiss Goodbye, 1973, was in Nashville, 1975, Capricorn One, 1977, and A Bridge Too Far, 1977, adding a levity to that last film. Gould did well with The Muppets, appearing in The Muppet Movie 1979 and The Muppets Take Manhattan 1984. He also had a recurring role in the Oceans movies, beginning with Ocean's 11 2001, Ocean's 12 2004, and Ocean's 13 2007. Gould played gangster Harry Greenberg in Bugsy 1991 and was fantastic in the hard-to-watch American History X 1998. Gould is still actively working in television and film. James Brolin played astronaut Charles Brubaker. Brolin was born in L.A. in 1940. Brolin enrolled in University High School where he became friends with Ryan O'Neal. O'Neal encouraged Brolin to try acting. Brolin then studied acting at UCLA. He signed with 20th Century Fox in 1960. He worked as a contract player in Sandra Dee movies. This should be read as background beefcakes. At 20, Brolin began getting bit parts in other movies such as Take Her, She's Mine, 1963, Dear Bridget, 1965, Von Ryan's Express, 1965, John Goldfarb, Please Come Home, 1965, a wacky movie where a downed U-2 pilot coaches an Arab team against the Notre Dame University team with Brolin as the Irish quarterback, and Fantastic Voyage, 1966. A large role in the poorly received The Cape Town Affair 1967 resulted in him being let go by 20th Century Fox. In 1969, Brolin began the television role that he is most associated with, Marcus Welby, M.D., 1969-76. Brolin was cast as young Dr. Stephen Kiley, learning under the tutelage of Dr. Marcus Welby played by television veteran Robert Young. Their nurse, Elena Verdugo, was in House of Frankenstein in 1944, which was covered in episode 76. The 1970s and 1980s were very good for Brolin, with him leading in such films as Skyjack 1972, Westworld 1973, Gable and Lombard 1976, Capricorn One 1977, The Amityville Horror 1979, When the Voice Says Get Out, Get Out, Night of the Juggler 1980, High Risk 1981, Pee-wee's Big Adventure 1985, where he played Pee-wee in a movie inside the movie. Brolin continues to work. He's also the father of actor Josh Brolin with his first wife. Brenda Vacarro played Kay Brubaker, the wife of astronaut Charles Brubaker. Vacarro was born in 1939 in New York City.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
With her husky, accented voice, it is hard to believe she was raised in Texas. Vacarro began acting in high school and began with television roles in 1961. Her career has tended more towards television than film. She studied at the Neighborhood Playhouse under Stanford Meisner. Her movie roles include Midnight Cowboy 1969, The House by the Lake 1976, a rape revenge plot, Airport 77 1977, Capricorn One 1977, where she was a major story driver, Zorro the Gay Blade 1981, where she was hilarious, The Disappointing Supergirl 1984, and 10 Little Indians 1989, which is an Agatha Christie whodunit. Vacarro is still active. Sam Waterston played astronaut and Joker Peter Willis. Waterston was born in Massachusetts in 1940. Waterston attended Groton Prep School and graduated from Yale in 1962. He then studied at the American Actors Workshop in Paris. Some of his movies include The Great Gatsby 1974 with Robert Redford, Rancho Deluxe 1975, a modern rustling story with Jeff Bridges, Capricorn One 1977, Woody Allen directed Interiors 1978, Hannah and Her Sisters 1986, September 1987, and Crimes and Misdemeanors 1989, Heaven's Gate 1980, a Western drama, Hopscotch 1980, a fun spy thriller with Walter Matthau, The Killing Field 1984, where he was nominated for Best Actor, Nixon 1995, and Miss Sloane 2016, showing he can play a stinker. Waterston is probably best known as prosecutor D.A. Jack McCoy from the television show Law & Order 1994 to 2010. Appearing in 367 episodes, only S. Epath Merkelson had more. Waterston is still very active. Orenthal James Simpson, known commonly as OJ, played astronaut John Walker. Simpson was born in California in 1947. Simpson was a halfback at UCLA and won the Heisman Trophy in 1968. Simpson played professional football for the Buffalo Bills 1969 to 77 and San Francisco 49ers 1978 to 79. After football, he became a pitchman working for the likes of Hertz rental cars running through airports. He started acting and producing, and he did quite well. In one of his early television appearances on Dragnet 1967, released in 1968, Simpson played a black youth suspicious of the police who is harshly set straight by Jack Webb as Sergeant Friday. Look for it. Simpson's films include disaster flicks The Towering Inferno 1974, The Cassandra Crossing 1976, Capricorn One 1977, Back to the Beach 1987, which showed beach favorites Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello as older adults, and has OJ as a man at the airport spoofing his former pitchman work. And for anyone that says OJ can't act, there is The Naked Gun from The Files of Police Squad 1988, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear 1991, and Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult 1994. In 1994, Simpson was charged with murdering his ex-wife Nicole Brown and her friend Ron Goldman. After a year and a half and as much as $20 million in lawyers' fees, Simpson was found not guilty. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. A civil jury later found him guilty and he was ordered to pay $30.5 million. Simpson was convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping in 2008. This was related to sports memorabilia that he may have hidden to avoid payment of part of the civil suit. He was sentenced to 33 years. He was paroled in 2017 and now walks the street. So when people tell you OJ wasn't a good enough actor to fake being innocent, I say look at the body of work. Karen Black played Judy Drinkwater. What a name. Black was born in Illinois in 1939. Black entered Northwestern University before heading to New York to study under Lee Strasberg. She began working in theater and made it to Broadway by 1965. Black's first major film role was You're a Big Boy Now, 1966. She stayed busy with television shows until she was in Easy Rider 1969 with Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, and Jack Nicholson. Her work in this film made her a star. She was paired with Jack Nicholson again in 5 Easy Pieces 1970. She received an Oscar nomination for this role. Following this, she started getting crappier roles. In 1974, Black was nominated for a Golden Globe for her work in The Great Gatsby 1974. She was part of the disaster films with Airport 1975 that was released in 1974. She did well in Nashville 1975 and wrote 2 songs that her character performed. She played a jewel thief in Alfred Hitchcock's last film, Family Plot 1976. Black did several films in the horror genre, including Burnt Offering 1976, Out of the Dark 1988, Mirror Mirror 1990, Children of the Night 1991, and House of 1,000 Corpses 2003. In all, Black has over 200 film and television credits. However, many of her later films were not up to her talent level. Black died in 2013. Barbara Bosin played Alva Leacock. She is a noticeable actress that we refer to at home as the whiner. She doesn't as much act as she whines her way through the part. Bosin was born in Pennsylvania in 1939. As a teenager, the family moved to Florida. After she graduated from high school, she was accepted into the drama department at what is now Carnegie Mellon. Bosin decided that her family could not afford the tuition and decided to move to New York City. She worked at a variety of jobs including secretary, assistant, and a Playboy bunny. At the age of 26, she decided it was time for a change and got an audition with the head of the Carnegie Drama Department. Based on this audition, she was given a scholarship. During her time at school, she met her future husband, Stephen Bochco. During a summer break, she began working with an improv group in San Francisco. She stayed there 3 years. Her first uncredited role was in Bullitt, 1968. Her 2 movies of note are Capricorn One, 1977, and The Last Starfighter, 1983, where she whined at Alex for the entire movie. Bosin worked in movies and television until her husband cast her in a role on Hill Street Blues, 1981-86, as the ex-wife of the police chief. She whined for child support through the entire series. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The movie begins with NASA Mission Control announcing the launch of a flight destined for Mars. The scene is very familiar with a Saturn V rocket on the launch pad in Florida, hundreds of news cameras, and a view stand full of VIPs, including a senator, the vice president, and the wives of the 3-man crew. Senator Peaker, David Huddleston, is pushing the vice president, James Caron, for funding for NASA programs and why the president, Norman Bartold, failed to attend the launch. The VP said domestic issues are more pressing now. This mirrors the early ending of the Apollo program once we had beaten those godless commies to the moon. The planned flight to Mars is codenamed Capricorn One. The crew consists of all-American hero Brubaker, James Brolin, constant joker Willis, Sam Waterston, and the more stoic Walker, OJ Simpson. The crew is loaded into the capsule by the ground crew, and they begin going through their launch procedures.
Gentlemen, we're ready to close the hatch.
Anybody want to get out? This is your last chance.
AR, is Mars the red one or the green one? I forgot.
$4 billion to put crazy people into space.
Keep us off the streets.
The gantries are pulled away from the ship, and it's quite surprising to see a man in a suit opening the door. He tells the astronauts there's no time to explain, and they must follow him.
TLR pressure reading is 45.2.
Roger, Houston.
Roger, Captain. We copy.
crew. Would you and your men please follow me?
Hey, what the hell is this?
There's no time to explain. Please follow me.
Are you nuts?
I said there's no time to explain. This is an emergency. Please follow me. Now!
They are ushered down to a waiting van, then to a helicopter, and finally to a Lear jet. The pilot of the jet gives them jumpsuits to change into, and they are flown west. The rocket takes off as planned, and the voices of the astronauts are heard still going through the checklist. The Lear jet with the astronauts lands at an abandoned military base somewhere out west. The crew is still not being told what the problem is.
Colonel Brubaker, could you please come with us?
I'm not going anywhere until somebody tells us what the hell's going on.
Everything will be explained to you.
Bullshit. I want to know right now.
Colonel, I know this sounds strange. We are all working for the same thing. We are not your enemy.
They are ushered into a conference room and are shocked when the NASA flight director, Kellaway, Hal Holbrook, comes into the room. He goes into a rambling speech about the importance of the program and how long they have all worked together. He also mentions that he is a good family friend of the Brubakers.
And he said, Jim, make it good. Congress is on my back. They're looking for a reason to cancel the program. We can't afford another screw-up. He sits there with those flags behind his chair and tells me we can't afford a screw-up. And guess what? We had a screw-up. A first-class, bona fide, made-in-America screw-up. The good people from Con Amalgamate delivered a life support system cheap enough so they could make a profit on the deal. Works out fine for everybody. Con Amalgamate makes money. We have our life support system. Everything's peachy. Except they made a little bit too much profit. We found out 2 months ago it won't work. You guys would all be dead in 3 weeks.
He finally gets to the point and says that they learned that the life support system would not keep the astronauts alive. Yep, that's what happens when the government contractors select the lowest bidder. Kellaway says that if the flight was delayed, Congress would cancel the program. Kellaway says they are going to fake the mission and record the landing at a studio on the base. Brubaker refuses to go along, and then Kellaway drops the bomb on them that big people are involved, and if they refuse, the flight carrying their wives back to Houston will explode.
You thought of everything.
I don't know. I hope so.
Of course, you're sure we'll go along, right?
No, I'm not.
What if we say no?
I don't know. Don't say no.
When does Alan Funt come running in and tell us we're all on candid camera?
Oh, Jesus. You think I like this?
If the only way to keep something alive is to become everything I hate, I don't know if it's worth keeping it alive.
Please, Brew. Don't talk like that.
What the hell's the matter with you? Please, Brew, don't talk like that. I don't think this is right. All the rest is bullshit.
You have to help.
What do you mean I have to?
You have to help.
Well, what if I don't?
Please. Your families.
The plan is to have them record the fake landing and then be placed back in the capsule after it splashes down. Kellaway plays the victim card. Outside the Brubaker home, reporter Robert Caulfield, Elliot Gould, is bitching to his would-be girlfriend, reporter Judy Drinkwater, Karen Black. Miss Kay Brubaker, Brenda Vacarro, comes out to talk to the reporters with her sexy voice. Back at NASA Control, technician Elliot Witter, Robert Walden, who I prefer to call by his Lou Grant name, Rossi, runs an unauthorized check and finds out that the television signal is coming in ahead of the signal from the ship, indicating that the television is coming from a closer source. He is ignored by his supervisor. On the day of the Mars landing, the wives are brought back to mission control. Elliot is still worried about the signal. Elliot reports the issue to Kellaway.
Well, I just can't figure something out, sir.
What is that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but it's in the readout. I spoke to Dr. Bergen about it a long time ago, and he said it was in the console. I'd like you to take a look at it.
What console are you on?
Telemetry's a 36.
Oh, yes, Dr. Bergen told me about that. We had that console repaired.
I know, sir. It's just I keep on having the same readouts.
What readout?
Well, sir, I ran a program on my own just to check something, and the readout's different.
You ran your own program?
The astronauts begin filming their fake Mars landing. The production crew fakes the gravity with slow-mo. The entire country is watching the fake landing with pride. The shadow of the landing module on the backdrop looks like a giant alien ready to attack. Elliot tells reporter Caulfield about the problem. They meet in a bar and Elliot starts giving Caulfield the story about the signal coming from 300 miles away. Caulfield is called away to the phone, and when he returns, Elliot has vanished. Back on the set, Brubaker says he cannot fake the personal message to his wife. The producer hears them talking and reports it to Kellaway. The next day, Miss Walker, Denise Nicholas, talks first, followed by Mrs. Willis, Lee Bryant, and finally Kay. The production crew has a finger on the cutoff button. Kay reads a heartbreaking essay from their son, and Brew is about to break. Finally, he says he's going to take his son back to Yosemite just like last summer. Kay makes a face, but says, okay.
When I get back, I'm going to take him to Yosemite again, like last summer.
Caulfield finds that all traces of Elliot have disappeared. They have moved someone into his apartment, Barbara Boson, complete with junk mail and a phone number. As soon as he leaves the apartment, his brakes go out and his accelerator sticks. The emergency brake, ignition, and gear shift fail to work as well. Finally, he flies off a drawbridge but survives unharmed. At last, the day comes for the capsule to splash down. The 3 astronauts are flown from the abandoned base, presumably en route to the island. In mission control, a heat shield warning goes off. The heartbeats on the monitors for the astronauts go flat. The empty ship returning from Mars burned up when it hit the Earth's atmosphere. The Learjet turns around in mid-flight. The jet lands back at the base around the time Kellaway is having a press conference saying the astronauts are dead. Brubaker figures out that something happened and they are now considered dead. He tells the others that they will be killed. They decide to escape. The door is locked, but Brubaker uses his St. Christopher medal to escape, the patron saint of travelers. Since they are all pilots, they quickly skyjack the jet. The bad guys pursue in government sedans and block the runway. The astronauts get off the ground, closing the door just in time, breaking the landing gear off on the top of one of the sedans. They fly west. The jet runs out of fuel and they have to do a belly landing in the desert. They divide up the survival kit.
Anybody want the gun?
I'd shoot my foot.
I'd shoot his foot.
I'll continue west. John, you go north. Peter, you go south. We came from the east, so we know that's the wrong way. There's not a lot of time. There's too much to say, so let's go. If any of us makes it. Well.
I ever tell you the one about the guy who had a job giving enemas to elephants?
They each have a flare, and Brubaker takes the gun. They are told to shoot a flare if they are caught. Brew goes west, Willis goes south, and Walker goes north. Caulfield, who is still following the disappearance of his friend, notes Kay's face when Brew talks about the vacation. Kay is in seclusion with her family, but Caulfield manages to get inside. Caulfield apologizes and then asks about the conversation with her husband and the face she made. Kay tells Caulfield that they didn't go to Yosemite, they went to Flat Rock. Flat Rock is a place where movies are made. Now, in one of the coolest parts of the movie, 2 olive drab loaches with tinted windows are sent out to search for the astronauts. The 2 helicopters turn to correspond with their communication, and it gives the appearance of being live animals hunting for their prey. They are in direct contact with Kellaway. Willis begins climbing a steep rock at the end of a canyon. Caulfield goes to Flat Rock. He is shot at and has to take cover. Brubaker buries himself to avoid capture by the helicopter but loses the gun. Kellaway goes to see Kay. He tells her that the memorial service will be on Tuesday and the president will be in attendance. Walker is looking for water when he sees 2 birds flying towards him. His eyes clear and the birds are the helicopters. The others see Walker's flare go off. Caulfield returns to Kay's house and she tells him that Brubaker said that the special effects at Flat Rock would allow them to make anything seem real.
I don't think your husband is the kind of man who makes mistakes, no matter how far away he may be. I think he was trying to tell you something.
What?
What did you do at Flat Rock?
They were making a movie the day we were there. Brew was fascinated with the detail. He couldn't get over how something so fake could look so real. He kept on saying that with that kind of technology, you could convince people of almost anything.
She shows him her home movies. Willis makes it to the top of the rock, and the 2 helicopters are parked there waiting for him. Brubaker sees the flare go off, and he knows he is the last. Caulfield tells his editor about the story and is met with the worst case of sarcasm ever.
I got a tip from a friend, a good friend, then he disappeared.
He disappeared?
Like he never existed. There's some lady living in his apartment. His apartment is all different. She said she's been living there for more than a year. I checked the building rental office. They have receipts from her for more than a year. I checked NASA personnel. They have no record that my friend ever worked there. They say they never even heard of him.
So this friend of yours who works at NASA gives you a tip and then he disappears. And it turns out that he never lived in his apartment. He never worked at NASA. And this is the guy that gave you the tip on your cosmic scoop, and you think I won't believe you?
That night, Caulfield's house is raided, and he is arrested for cocaine that was not in the bathroom before the raid. This results in him later losing his job. Judy Drinkwater tells Caulfield about abandoned military bases in a 300-mile range. She also gives him her car and cash to finance his search.
You see, I told you. You tell me about the lonely plight of a dedicated journalist, I tell you to stuff it. You tell me about a meaningful relationship, I tell you to stuff it. You tell me you're in trouble, you're out on bail, you just got fired, I tell you I'll be right over. I'll fix you some coffee, then you can jump me.
Brubaker continues to avoid the helicopter, this time hiding in a cave. It almost results in a rattlesnake bite. Man wins and snake tastes like chicken. Caulfield makes it to the abandoned base where he finds the remains of the soundstage, complete with red sand and Brubaker's St. Christopher medal. Brubaker, who is now fueled up on snake, continues to move. Caulfield goes to a crop dusting service where he meets crazy pilot Albane Telly Savalas. It seems like the pilot may have changed his name from Archer Maggot following his World War II adventures in the Dirty Dozen 1967.
You in charge here?
See that sign there?
Yes.
Well, read it.
I did.
Out loud.
A&A Crop Dusting Service.
You want to know who I am?
I bet you're one of the A's.
But which one? I bet you can't answer that question, smart ass.
First one.
Wrong.
Can I have one more guess?
You got it.
The second one.
Wrong. I'm both of them. A and A. My name is Albane. Now, I got a son. You know, the other A was for him. But he don't like to fly. He became a lawyer. I think he's a pervert, so I took the A away from him.
Caulfield rents the biplane and they head out. Brubaker wakes in the morning with a scorpion on his face. He has spent the night across the street from a closed gas station. Back in Houston, Kay and her kids are picked up for the memorial. Albane sees the helicopters and they decide to follow them. Brubaker calls his home, but no one is there, and this is way before answering machines. The helicopters approach the gas station and land.
He must be in there! Let's go down! They ain't got guns, Sonny! Just that you wanted a third of the loot! Half! Okay, half!
The pilots get out, and they have tinted windshields too! Brubaker whops one of them with a crowbar and jumps through the window to escape from the other. Albane has landed the biplane in the road, and Caulfield motions Brubaker to jump on. Brubaker holds onto a strut as the helicopters chase and fire at the biplane. Albane takes him into some canyons, and the 3 aircraft do some fancy nap of the earth flying. Finally, one of the helicopters begins banging on the top wing of the biplane with its skid tubes. Albane tells Caulfield to get ready to pull a lever as he executes an inside loop. They spray crop dusting stuff on the helicopter. Now blinded, the 2 helicopters crash into the end of the canyon.
Perverts! Remember, I can have!
Remember Will Smith doing this in Independence Day 1996, only with a parachute? Total ripoff of this film, and some others. The president is giving his speech at the memorial, and Kellaway is saddled up next to Kay and the kids. With light piano music, the car Caulfield was driving pulls up, and he and Brubaker run towards the shocked crowd in slow-mo. Kellaway looks a little sick. World famous short summary, helicopters can't fly a loop. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I really appreciate you spending the time listening. You can find connections to social media and email on my site at snarkymoviereviews.com. There are links in the podcast show notes as well. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All that I ask is you jump over to Apple Podcasts and give me a review. It really helps the show get found. Beware the Moors.